Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Hi, how are you? My name is Joan McLean, and if you're new here, I am here every Tuesday and Thursday to give you true crimes that has happened here in Canada. And how is everyone doing this fine Tuesday morning or afternoon or throughout the week, whatever it is? How's everyone doing, and what are you guys' plan for the long weekend in May? I would like to know. I'm not doing anything and I'm really looking forward to it. I've been so stressed out with just life itself and friends and everything and relationships and work, and you guys know how it is in the middle of the year. Things just start going crazy. So I've just been stressing out, and because I've been stressing out, I am breaking out, and because of that, I have to pile on the makeup, which means that I break out more. So it's a sick world I live in right now, but yeah, so last week I had a little giveaway and Robin won that, and I know she really likes her gift I gave her. Thank you for participating, and everyone who has participated in the last little giveaway. It means a lot to me that I have that many fans and how you guys have just been supporting me lately. So I am sorry I wasn't posting anything last week. I got a little busy with, again, life and stress and life and more stress and life on top of stress. So I was not doing anything. But today I got one who the crime essentially wasn't committed in Canada, but the crime was committed by a Canadian. So a little different, just a Canadian type of story. And yeah, I'm going to get into it. So this one is about a WWE player. So let's get ready to rumble. It's Chris Benoit. So let's get into Chris Benoit. So I think today we're just going to start off with a very natural look. Just to, get started, and nothing crazy, with my face just going absolutely bonkers. I don't want to go too crazy with the look today, but we'll do our best and see what I come up with. I don't even know what I'm going to even do. So Chris Benoit was born in Montreal, Quebec, the son of Michael and Margaret Benoit. He grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, from where he was billed throughout the bulk of his career. He kind of started off in Edmonton, really got his name out there in the wrestling community. He had a sister living near Edmonton as well. And during his childhood and early adolescence in Edmonton, Benoit idolized Tom Dynamite Kid Billington and Bret Hart, and who didn't? I watched a lot of wrestling as a kid with my dad, so I knew a lot of these characters when I was actually reading this. At 12 years old, he attended a local wrestling event at which the two performers stood out above everyone else. Benoit trained to become a professional wrestler in the Hart family of Duggan or whatever. Receiving education from the family in ring, Benoit, both with Billington and Bret Hart, was pretty creative. He had a high-risk type of style. He had a great physical appearance. So that was very captivating to the audience. You got to be a likable person. With wrestling, it's not how good you are at taking someone down and how good you are at the wrestling moves. That is a benefit, but a lot of the time it's very entertainment based. So if you don't really have your character master, becoming a master at your character, or having a good entertainment value in your performance, a lot of people won't like you. So a little bit of Chris Benoit is he did come up in the rankings in Canada. He started out in Edmonton, moved around the world, Montreal, went to Japan for a little bit, and then kind of just got chosen to be a part of WWE, which is kind of it's like being picked to go play in the NBA. Right? It's something that's it's the prestige area where the best of the best go. And then he started doing his career that way and became a professional wrestler and pretty much a household name at that point. He was very well known. I know I, as a child, knew of him quite well and would watch him on the television all the time with my dad and be like, oh, he's the Canadian wrestler. You know, there's not too many of those out there, so I thought that was really cool at the time. So over a 3-day period in 2007, between June 22 and the 24th of June, this is when things took off. So around this time, remember, I know a lot of people, when they think of these type of acts of crime, they just think automatically that like, oh, it's because of CTE. And for most of us who are like true crime fans and actually into like sports and stuff, you do know what CTE is. That is when your brain gets like concussed over and over. I don't know the exact thing that happens, but it makes you kind of go crazy just because like your brain swells. And the only like crappy thing about that is you're unable to diagnose CTE and any of those type of brain trauma things while you're alive. You kind of have to wait for them to die to be like, oh yeah, this guy had it, which is like really crappy in my mind, because it's like, well, how are you supposed to help the person who has it if you can't diagnose them until they're dead and they did a horrendous crime? So over the period of June 22nd and 24th of 2007, Chris Benoit, a 40-year-old Canadian professional wrestler employed by the World Wrestling Entertainment, aka the WWE, and living in Fayetteville, Georgia, killed his wife Nancy and their 7-year-old son Daniel, oh my god, I can't read today, Daniel, before hanging himself. So the autopsy results showed that Benoit's wife was murdered first, as she was bound at the feet and the wrists, and then died of asphyxiation. So he must have strangled her on the night of June 22nd. And on June 25th, Nancy was found wrapped in a towel with blood under her head. Although the county district attorney, Scott Bellin, reported there were no other signs of struggle. So if she died of asphyxiation, explain to me why there was a bunch of blood underneath her head. Like asphyxiation means like you were strangled or something shoved in your mouth, you drowned, like stuff like that. Asphyxiation doesn't mean like you had a lot of blows to the head and there was a bunch of blood. Riddle me that. So the couple's son, Daniel Christopher Bennett, also died. He was only 7 at the time. He was killed as he was laying down in his bed the morning of June 23rd. So this was like over a span. So Chris Benoit did his thing, killed his wife. And then I guess in the house that the dead wife was in, he left his son to lay. So that's weird. So they found him laying in a separate bed on the morning of June 23rd. Then on the evening of June 24th, Benoit committed suicide himself on his weight room. When he used his lat pull-down machine to hang himself, he placed copies of the Bible alongside the body of his wife and son. Since Benoit's suicide, numerous explanations of the actions had been like kind of coming out there. Like there was a lot of like conspiracies and why did he do what he did, kind of stuff like that, but including CTE, which is chronic traumatic, I cannot pronounce the last word, but again, it's just a bunch of shots to the head after a while that makes you go crazy. And then there was also believed that he did steroids and there was alcohol abuse, leading to a failed marriage and other personal problems. The incident led to numerous media accounts and federal investigations into his steroid abuse into professional wrestling. Oh my god, my speech impediment came right out there. During the span of the murders, Benoit's former tag partner, Billy Willington, who I don't remember at all, was found dead. Benoit committed suicide 2 days later. So it could have been a spiraling effect, but it might have not been. Now we're just going to get into a little bit more details on what exactly he did to the bodies and like his wife and stuff, which is really sad. So on Friday of June 22nd, 2007, Chris Benoit again killed his wife, Nancy, in an upstairs bedroom. Her limbs were bound and her body was wrapped in a towel. A copy of the Bible was found at the bed where she was. Injuries indicated that Benoit had pressed a knee into the back while pulling on a cord around her neck, causing strangulation. So that's the asphyxiation. Officials said that there were no signs of immediate struggle. Toxicology found alcohol in her body, but were unable to determine whether it had been present before death or just decomposition products. Just because of the decomposition too, it also made it very difficult to do the pre-death levels of like all the stuff that's in it, like all of her, like just to like really tell when she died and like where she died and stuff like that, because they can usually tell if the body's pretty fresh, like how fresh it was, but with alcohol and everything it was kind of confusing to them. They couldn't really figure out the exact time of death for her. And they found therapeutic levels in her body, and in any case, her medical examiner had no evidence that she was separate as her son had been when she was killed. So they couldn't really, like, it's kind of tough because, like, I think the son died later than she did. And so he just murdered the son, left him alive for quite a bit after his mom's just laying dead upstairs, which is kind of messed up. But, you know, for somebody who has like CTE and stuff like that, remorse might have set in. He might have actually stopped and kind of started thinking what he was doing and was like, this isn't okay. I shouldn't be doing this. And then waited a day and was like, I should probably kill my son now. I don't know what I'm doing with my face. I'll just start with a nice basic color and see what I want to do with my eyes. So Daniel Christopher Benoit, he was Chris's third child and second son, having older parental half-siblings named David and Megan via Chris's first wife, Martina. I like the name Martina, I know one. Sorry, now that I'm focusing, who were all living in Canada at the time the murder-suicide took place. He was Nancy's only child, so she had no children with her ex-husband, Jim. So this was the only kid that she had with him, which is like kind of really, really sad in my opinion. So I haven't mentioned this before, but Daniel did have disabilities. I think it might have been like cerebral palsy or something like that. But that might have been one of the reasons why he was totally chill with just leaving the dead mom in the house for a couple days before he killed Daniel, because Daniel couldn't really get to the mom. If she was in the upstairs level and he was in a wheelchair, it was kind of like, what's Daniel going to do? He ain't going to be able to get up there anyway. So they just left it. It was later alleged that Daniel had Fragile X syndrome, and that was the cause of the domestic problems in the Bennett family, which it happens a lot. Having a kid with special needs really pushes a family to the edge. I know that from like just the job I do now, but it is hard having a kid that's special needs. You don't love them any less than you would love a normal kid, but it is harder. You know, there's not as much supports in the world to help a family raising somebody with special needs. And if you don't have money, then it's very hard to give them the type of therapy and support that that child needs to grow to be a successful adult and live independently in the world. It is doable, but it is very, very hard. It was also suggested that needle marks on Daniel's arms were the result of growth hormones given to him by Bennett, and his family considered him undersized due to the Fragile X syndrome. Bennett's co-workers and best friend wrestling Chris Jericho stated that from his own research on the condition, the symptoms fit Daniel to a T all across the board. Concerning those who had public statement that they had no knowledge of Daniel having the condition, Jericho said, if Chris had decided that he wanted to keep it to himself, you wouldn't have been able to pry that out of him or anything. Despite Chris Jericho's initial statement regarding Daniel, he later stated in 2011, in his book, it turned out Daniel didn't have Project X, but at the time it made sense because I was grasping at straws. So in that sense, so Daniel had a disability. It wasn't 100% Fragile X, but he had something, and it seemed to me, just reading, that Benoit, or his dad, really couldn't accept the fact that his son was disabled. So he was giving him drugs, he was giving him growth hormones, he was kind of like really in denial. And it is hard for parents to be like, not my kid. There's no way that my kid's disabled, or to figure out why the kid does what he does. I know that's a big problem too. A lot of people don't know, like, why isn't my kid growing up as fast as everyone else's kid? Or why is my kid not reading at the same level as the other kids in his class? And I kind of feel like that's what Chris was kind of feeling. Plus, being an amazing athlete that Chris was, he was probably hoping that his son would grow up to be an amazing athlete too, and to have some sort of disability that's making him frail-like, or unable to like really produce the muscle or be what his dad wants. Probably put a lot of pressure on Chris. I don't know, to me, if I had a child that was disabled, I feel like I would just be like, he's disabled, like, we'll just give him the best life we possibly can. Where I do find a lot of people struggle with having a disabled kid and almost deny it in a sense, because they assume it's a reflection of them, that since they have a disabled kid, there must be something wrong with them too, which is not the case at all. But it is very, very tough for people with growth, or even just like people having a child that's disabled. I find this one eye gets so muddy compared to this other eye. Again, remember when I said last video, oh, my one eye, I got one good eye and one bad eye? Well, it's really showing today on the look that this eye is nice and this eye sucks. You guys see how bad that one eye is? Whatever. So the district attorneys later released a statement saying that the source with access to Daniel's medical files found no mention of any pre-existing mental or physical disabilities. Likewise, Daniel Batit's teachers reported that he was on par with the other students and not about to be held back as previously thoughted. Speaking publicly for the first time, the major public interview on Talk Is Jericho podcast in 2016, Nancy's sister, Sandra, denied any claims that Daniel had any Fragile X or any other such condition. She also stated that the claims of needle track marks on Daniel's arm were preposterous. So she was pretty much like standing up for the family and being like, no, none of that ever happened. All that is a lie. Which I would say, if I had a nephew and he was murdered by his father, I'd be upset. Like, I would be like, now they're not there to defend themselves. Daniel's not there to defend himself. To be like, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm just a normal guy. Maybe he was just a little smaller than what his dad liked, right? Like, he was just a little small guy, and that might have been a problem. Maybe he wasn't that athletic, and that could have been a problem with his dad, because his dad's a super athlete and he's not. And it's kind of like I know I used to play university basketball. If my kid didn't like sports, it would be hard, but I don't think I'd kill them. I think I would just try to look for another outlet instead of murdering my children. But that's just me. I'm a different person. At about 3:30 p.m. on Saturday of June 23rd, a fellow wrestler and close friends with Chavo received a voicemail from Benoit, the phone stating that both Nancy and Daniel had food poisoning and he would be late for the night of the house showing in Birmingham, Texas. called Benoit back and found that Benoit sounded tired and groggy as he confirmed that everything he had said on the voicemail. Chavo, who was concerned about Benoit and his tone and his demeanor, called him back 15 minutes later. Benoit did not answer the call, and Chavo left a message asking Benoit to call him back, which would probably be really hard for that guy, because knowing what you know now, that sucks, right? Like, this guy reached out to you, called you about something, and you're like, oh yeah, no problem, like, whenever you feel better, come stop by my house and we can get together and we can go look at that house that you were wanting to buy. And then you call him back because you were like, well, I don't think he's actually feeling that great and maybe we should like talk a little bit more. And then the next like 3 days later you find out he murdered his family. I would feel like crap. I would not be feeling good about that afterwards. I'd be like, wow, I'm kind of a bag if that was me. And on 3:44 p.m., Benoit called Jericho back, stating that he had not answered the call. He was on the phone with Delta Airlines changing his flight. Benoit stated that he had a stressful day due to Nancy and Daniel being sick from food poisoning, and Chavo then replied with, all right, man, if you need to talk, I'm here for you. Benoit ended the conversation saying, Chavo, I love you. And during a 2014 appearance on Chris Jericho's Talk with Jericho podcast, Chavo and Benoit sounded off when he talked to him, especially when he said, I love you. Another coworker who often traveled with Benoit called him from outside the Houston airport, and Benoit answered. And Benoit told that coworker that Nancy was vomiting blood and that Daniel was also vomiting. Benoit failed to show for the house showing in Texas and left a voicemail on Chavo's cell phone. He had been on a flight that would arrive at Houston at 8 a.m. And on the following Sunday morning during this time, Benoit also called and left a voicemail from an unknown friend. So he was reaching out to people, kind of, I would say saying his last goodbyes without people knowing it. He was saying, like, you know, I love you, man. Like, thanks for always being there for me. Like, it means the world. I don't know what I'd do without you. Kind of stuff like that. And that happens. A lot of time, friends who don't usually hang out with people a lot, once they start hanging out with you a lot, or kind of, like, really being different than what they usually are, it can be a sign that they have something planned or whatnot. I know a couple stories of people being like, yeah, we should get together, we should do this, like, we need to hang out more, and they hang out with all their friends, and then like they look so happy and they look so just happy with life, and then the next couple days you find out that they killed themselves. So sometimes when your friends seem like they're the happiest, they're not. So always check in with your friends. So Chris Benoit, according to the district bail attorney and the city sheriff, committed suicide by hanging himself. Benoit used a weight machine cord to hang himself by creating a noose from the end of the cord and from his pull-down machine. Benoit released the weights, causing the strangulation, and Benoit was found hanging from the cable, which would be like a hard way to die. That's just me. And in 2016, Talk with Jericho podcast, Nancy's sister Sandra clarified some details further. She said that over the weekend after the murders, the search of Benoit's computer showed that he had researched the quickest and easiest way to break a neck. He had then later used a towel around his neck attached to the handle of the machine, which he pulled down using a very heavy weight to let go, breaking his neck instantly. So he was prepared. And it's really sad that people like this, Chris Benoit and stuff, think that they need to murder their families too. like, if you want to take your life, that's one thing. Sorry. Oh. But don't make it this whole choice for the family. That's all I'm saying. Is if you want to take your life, that's okay. Don't make it the whole thing for the family. The whole family doesn't need to die because you don't want to live anymore. That makes me kind of... Motor suicide, that stuff is like... So on Monday of June 25th, 2007, wrestling and the senior officials arrived at WWE Raw, which was taking place on Monday night in the American Bake Center. As the early hours of the afternoon progressed and the show got closer to starting, WWE senior officials were increasingly concerned that they hadn't heard from Chris Benoit over 24 hours. Trevor showed WWE Vice President the talent relationships, John whatever, aka Johnny Ace, the text messages he and Scott Armstrong had received from Chris and Nancy's cell phone earlier on Sunday, and some more time progressed. And without any contact from Chris, WWE kind of was like, we need to like figure out where he is. He's one of the biggest stars on the show. We need him here now. So then finally they did a welfare check on him. And Chris Benoit called Georgia police for a welfare check. So they called on him for his household. After discovering the bodies, police notified WWE around 4:15 p.m., informing them that they had discovered 3 bodies at Benoit's home and the house was now ruled a major crime scene. So they kind of didn't really have any choice but to do that. A suicide note was discovered during the initial investigation, but one was later discovered in the Bible that had been beside his wife, and in Benoit's possessions that were sent to his wife. There were 2 children in Canada. Benoit's father, Michelle Bennett, stated that Chris had left a handwritten note in there saying, "I'm prepared to leave Earth." So he had it. Something happened. Something clicked. I don't know what it was. That at least he was still thinking about his kids back in Canada, but wasn't thinking about good old Daniel and Nancy or what type of life that they could have had without him. So the former wrestler Christopher Norsky stated that Benoit had been suffering from repeated untreated concussions throughout his wrestling career, which is like kind of like the same thing that those football players have, ultimately leading him to an unstable mental state. Norsky was quoted as saying that Benoit was one of the only guys who would take a chair shot to the back of the head, which is stupid. Test conducts on Benoit's brain by Julian Bales, the head of the neuron surgery at the West Virginia University, showed Benoit's brain was severely damaged, and it represented the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. So there was something going on there. His body was so young and fit and, you know, ready to go, where then his brain was just not, that he did not have the brain capacity. Or like at 85, like my grandpa's 85 and has Alzheimer's, and I know what that's like, let alone somebody who's supposed to be wrestling and taking care of a family. It's scary. Other tests conducted on Benoit's brain tissues revealed some chronic trauma, so CTE, the damage to all 4 lobes of the brain stem. Bailey's and his colleagues concluded that repeated concussions can lead to dementia, which can contribute to several behavioral problems. Bennett's father said the brain damage may have been the leading cause of the double motor suicide. A statement released from WWE later dismissed the idea and said it was speculation, which I feel like that would be like kind of the main thing. Like, wouldn't you want to be like, oh, he was sick and we just didn't know about it, instead of being like, oh, that can't be true. So Nancy Benoit had filed for divorce in May of 2003, allegedly after the domestic abuse from Chris, but had withdrawn it in August 2003. In February of 2008, reported that Nancy had been suspected her husband of having an affair with a female wrestler from WWE, and that they may have also argued over a life insurance policy. If that was the case and he wanted life insurance, he probably would still be alive to this day. The AJC claimed the source was recently released, reported from the sheriff's office. Speaking on the matter of his autobiography, The Hardcore Truth and Hardcore Holly, speculation the main influence in Benoit's actions was alcohol and abuse. And that's the reason why he did all this, rather than steroids. Holly and Benoit traveled together on the road during their time in WWE, and Holly did not believe steroids played a factor, and Benoit had tended to drink more than normally, would have issues, and then have issues with Nancy. So alcohol was probably a huge thing in their life. And so still to this day, they don't know 100% why Chris Benoit did what he did. There's a lot of speculations and a lot of people in this world who are kind of like, won't take claim. Like, I don't think WWE is going to take claim for this. So I'm just going to put my lashes on and I'll come back for my final thoughts. All right, I'm back. Put my lashes on. Final look. What do you guys think? I enjoyed it. A little red devil type of like thing. Like it. So yeah, my final thoughts on this case was it was very sad, just due to the fact that he took his whole family's life and he didn't really give anyone like a chance to, like, if he was that upset about himself and had these problems, these mental issues, like his CTE, his trauma, his dementia, all that stuff that they talked about, it would make sense why he would kill himself. But his whole family, there seemed to be no rhyme or reason. There was nothing left in the note. No, nothing. He was just like, if I'm going, I'm taking the whole crew with me. Like, that's just how I got out of it. The other thing was, I knew he won a bunch of wrestling titles and immediately stripped right away. Like, it seemed like the WWE, who made him super successful and super famous and was there for him, the minute this came out, and it might have had something to do with his trauma to his head and how unsafe the WWE is, they wanted nothing to do with him. They're like, oh, who? Chris Benoit? Never part of this establishment. Like, we didn't know. Like, he's not a part of what we do. Which is like really shitty, because they should learn from these things and be like, okay, well then this guy who had CTE and was killing himself, we should maybe try to think of ways to support our athletes who get punched in the face every day so that this doesn't happen again. But instead they're like, strip him from his titles and we'll just keep on doing what we do until somebody else murders the family. Like, it doesn't make sense. I find WWE is like the shadiest business to get into. I feel, just for me, like, you look at football, somebody kills the family or like does something because of CTE, and there's like a huge breakthrough, and then like they're getting helmets, they're getting all this protective stuff, they're not allowed to hit with their heads anymore, they're not allowed to, like, there's tons of stuff that they implemented because of it. Well, this is like, sorry, sucks to suck, sucks that you killed your family, but better luck next time. Like, let's just hope it doesn't happen. We'll just act like he wasn't even a part of this franchise. And he was a huge name, like one of the first Canadians to be a huge WWE wrestler. So like, he was out there. And then when this happened, I just broke the internet. And that's the one thing, like, WWE is sketchy. Like, wrestling is sketchy. So like, don't do it. Do something else with your life, because you're going to kill your family. Well, you're not going to kill your family, but you're going to get no support from that establishment. And those are my final thoughts. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about this case? And it was a little different. He didn't technically kill his family here in Canada, but he was a Canadian who just went crazy and killed his family. So that's why I did this one. I'm not 100% sure who I'm going to do next, but there is like a couple cases. I was thinking in New Brunswick. There's what's his name? The Dexter killer here in Alberta. There's the guy who tried to sell his truck and then get murdered in Toronto. There's tons of cases I was thinking. So I just need to do a little bit more research and then just bust these things out, because I really enjoyed this. It's been a couple of days since I filmed, and I forgot how much I enjoy it and like it. So again, if you guys are new here, my name is Joan McLean, and I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday. Make sure you guys like and follow me on YouTube. Follow all my social medias, and if you can, there's a little button down below and it has a little bell, and if you click that, you get notified for whenever I have videos, so you won't miss one. So make sure you guys do this. Also, share this video with your friends and your family, and just get everyone out here watching all these true crimes. And if you guys have any true crimes you want me to do some more research on and like dive a little bit more into, let me know down below and I will see what I can do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye.